In this video, we'll be concerned with an introduction to market research. Now, before globalization and international trade, markets were concentrated and local. If we think about the way trading took place in the past, before globalization and before international trade, then there were broadly local markets, and the producers would know the customers because it was very small scale. It was very local. The producers knew the customs, the requirements, the traditions, the habits and so on of the local community. So it was a very low scale activity, and in that case the organization didn't need to have a formal process of market research to try and pick up information. It was obvious what the requirements of the markets were. Now, please note here I say before globalization, international trade. Well, in fact, international trade has been around for centuries. So when I say international trade, I mean large-scale international trade as we know it today, not the minor trade that took place in the past. So before globalization and, if you like, mass international trade, the producers knew their customers because the customers were local and they were also concentrated into particular areas. And in that case, there was no real need for market research. The producers simply knew who they were dealing with. Markets were not complex. Relationships with customers and suppliers were mainly face-to-face or based on some sort of personal contact. Perhaps the producer knew an agent who knew the supplier of the product, or knew the outlets, or knew the retailers, or whatever. So it was mainly small scale, face to face, using personal contact. And in that case, the markets were not complex, and there was no need again for market research. In recent years, technology and globalization has developed, and there is now large-scale industrialization and improved methods of transport and better communications channels. So the world in which we live today is vastly different to the past for the reasons of more contact with other countries, globalization, better communications channels, electronic communications channels which are very efficient, the whole idea of globalization. And therefore there is an emerging information gap. The point is that the producers need to know their customers, and their customers may no longer be living locally. Their customers now may be in different countries, on the other side of the world perhaps. So it's important that the producers understand the requirements of their customers in other parts of the world. It's a globalized market perhaps. But also the methods of production, the degree of competition in the market, and the distribution channels must also be understood. So now there is a requirement for information on the part of business, and this is a growing requirement as technology develops, as communications channels develop, and also as the whole process of global trade develops as well. So we live in a totally different world, but now there is more requirement for information, and therefore a bigger requirement for market research. With increasing customer demands and complex markets, organizations must ensure that they are capable of meeting needs. So the organization needs to know what the customer needs are. The customers locally, in the same country perhaps, but also the customers who live, as I said, in other parts of the world. So it's important that the organization acquires the information which will enable it to tweak its production, tweak its design, its product, to make it more suitable for the market in which it's intended. So there is a bigger requirement for information now than perhaps ever before. Market research is vital and allows management to make decisions based on valid and reliable information. Now, I talk about valid and reliable information. It's hopefully the case that the information is valid and reliable. And we talk about validity and reliability in other videos. But it's important to the management that the information is reliable, that the information is accurate, and that the information, that if the information was collected again the following month, it would essentially be the same. In other words, there were no distortions in the methods of collection, there was no biases introduced in the method which would distort the figures, because this would mislead the organization and caused it perhaps to invest in the wrong areas, to develop the wrong products, or develop capability that was not required. So market research is vital if the organization is to point in the right direction. It must make products that customers want, that customers need. And for the organization to do that, it must know what the customer's needs are. And indeed, it's sometimes the case that the customers themselves are not completely aware of what their needs are. So it's for the organization to try and determine these, and it does it through market research. Hopefully the research is accurate, it's valid and reliable, and if it is, then that's an indicator of what the company should be doing. So in order for management to make decisions, make good decisions that is, they must conduct market research. I say good decisions because management can make bad decisions, but in order for them to make good decisions which will promote the interest of the business and result in profitable development and security within the marketplace, for that to happen, they must base their decisions on information. And to do that, they conduct market research. Market research following some sort of technique that's agreed and felt appropriate. The market research will collect data. The data can then be analysed and processed into information, and the information is passed to the management, who will make appropriate decisions. I make it sound simple. In fact, it's a highly complex procedure. And even when the information is collected and passed to the management, there is still scope for bad decisions. So it's the quality of the management to effectively interpret the data, interpret the information, understand what is required and how to go about it, that will lead to profitability. Market research is important as it allows management to identify market trends and customer needs. We live in a world where trends are important. These could be ways of living. They could be the style, the lifestyle that we aspire to, the type of products we want in our home, the type of lifestyle in terms of holidays or clothing, or what do we require? And looking at the trends in these is important. If we study, for example, the consumer expenditure in the United Kingdom in the past, let's say in the 1940s or even 1950s, then eating out was not a major item. It didn't appear in the national accounts. People did not eat out on a significant scale. But now it's the case that eating out is a major item in the accounts. Trends, fashions change. lifestyles have changed. So it's important to recognize that within all aspects of the market system there are changes in place. The changes may be caused through advertising or through magazines. They may be caused through changes in technology, changes in ways of living. They can be changed in a variety of ways and for a variety of reasons. But it's important that the producer understands the trends and is able to produce products that meet the requirements. And the only way it can do that is by knowing what the trends are, the direction of the trends, trying to anticipate the trends, and producing products which will have a market. And it does that based on information collected from market research. So market research helps management to make marketing decisions. Decisions about the product, style of the product, the after-sales service, the customer relations management, the price of the product, delivery, lead times. All of this must be taken into account to try and meet customer requirements. Research contains data that may be transformed into information which helps an organization conduct their daily activities, make day-to-day decisions, and produce policies. So the research picks up data. It picks up perhaps quantitative data, or it could be qualitative data in the form of opinions and attitudes and comments. But whatever source or whatever type of data it collects, that must be analyzed and transformed into information. And the transformation process should be unbiased. All of the assumptions made should be clearly stated, made explicit. And when the information is distilled in this way, when it's taken out of the data, then it's passed to management to make managerial decisions regarding the market and regarding the product. Market research has evolved into a systematic approach in order to meet the demands of complex markets and customers' demands. As I said earlier, we live in an increasingly sophisticated society, an increasingly complex society. It's far more global and widespread now than it's ever been because of the impact of information and computerization, the internet, but also television channels which make us aware of what the fashion trends in America are, or what the Americans are doing, or what the South Americans are doing, or what the people in India are looking for, people in China. It's a much more global picture. In the past, that information was not easily available, and therefore companies focused in on the local markets. Now they must focus on global markets. They may go through processes of segmentation and looking at different segments of the market and so on. But having said that, they still have to look at the global picture. Now, definition of market research. Well, the American Marketing Association give the following. It's quite a long definition. It's taken from Brassington and Pettit's book. Market research is a function which links the consumer, customer and the public to the marketer through information. Information used to identify and define marketing opportunities and problems, generate, refine and evaluate marketing actions, monitor marketing performance and improve understanding of marketing as a process. Quite a sophisticated definition. I'll leave it for you to look at, stop the video perhaps and write this down and have a look at it and see what it means and see what the various terms are and why they're important. So marketing or market research, I should say, covers a range of marketing activities and all aspects of good and service delivery. So market research doesn't just look at the product, it looks at perhaps the delivery of the product, the experiences of customers, it looks at issues perhaps that have gone wrong in the past, it looks at what sort of remedial action was taken, how the customers are dealt with, the customer relations management. Market research can delve into all of the areas to try and get a picture of what the customers want and perhaps what the image of the organization is currently, and how, if it falls short in any respects, how that could be amended. So market research, as I said, covers many areas. For example, we have product research, looking at the reception the product gets in the marketplace, the type of product it is and how customers see it. We have customer research, the type of customers that the organization is aiming at. Pricing research, looking at whether the customers consider the price of the product appropriate or too expensive or even too cheap. It may be an indicator of quality. Sales and distribution research, looking at how the sales channels operate and how distribution works. And promotion research, looking at the types of promotion the organization have used, perhaps advertising, perhaps local campaigns. What sort of promotion have they used and how effective are these? Now, in the remainder of this video we're going to talk about these, and we're going to start with product research and work our way across. So let's start with product research. Well, market research is concerned with product development and contributes to further develop existing products or the introduction of new products. So market research picks up information from the customers related to the product, and the information, the feedback from the customers may be that they suggest improvements, what they would like to see. The product would be better if it could do the following, or if it looked in the following manner, or if it had certain functionality that it currently doesn't have. So customers are a valuable source of information for the innovation of the product and for the development of the product. And this is where new products can start. So the customers take the existing product and they're interviewed regarding the product, their perceptions of the product, their use of the product, their experiences of using it, and ask them to criticize it or to make recommendations. And this could be the basis for the start of the development of a new product. The aim is to focus on the needs of the customers. So market research does not take place just as an activity because the company thinks it's a good idea because everyone else is doing it. It is actually trying to pick up on what the needs of the customers are. So it must focus in very specifically on customer needs. Identify the customer's needs and then look critically at the product to see the extent to which the product meets those needs. The use of research and development helps marketers produce products and services suited for target customers. As I said earlier, the research can throw up issues about design, functionality, all of the issues associated with the product, and this can drive change, but the change is targeted at more precisely meeting the customer needs. So the research and development can help tweak the product, which will give the customer more satisfaction and of course thereby also generate more sales and more security for the company. Market research helps marketers determine quality of product, customer preference and trends in the market, and product performance against competitor products. So all of these can be investigated through market research. What is the perception of the product by the customer in terms of quality? Is it good quality? Is it durable? Does it represent value for money? Look at customer preferences and trends in the market. Perhaps the trends are towards a different design. Perhaps a competitor has brought out a new design which is proving popular. It's important to ask the customers why. Why is it the case that that is popular, and what is it about it that makes it attractive? And look at the performance of the product against the competitors. Try to be as objective as possible and compare the product that the company makes with those made by the competitors to see if it's good, if it stands up, if it's better quality or weaker in certain areas or lacks functionality, or what is it about the product that gives it an edge in the market compared to its competitors, if any. Globalization has a major impact on product development and the needs for research and development. Organizations now operate in global markets and are faced with intense competition. Before globalization, the company may have had local competitors, but now the competitors are global. This means that the organization needs to understand customers in different countries, but also be aware of what competitors right throughout the world are doing in the context of this product. What research and development are they undertaking? What type of products have they produced? What's the functionality of the product? What's the perceived quality of their product? So run through the whole range of issues. What's the price of their product? What's the availability of their product? What's the durability? Go through everything. But the only way it can do that is by having good product research. Now let's turn to customer research. Research is carried out on buyer behavior and influences on purchase decisions. So look at the buyer behavior of the customer. So what determines the sale? What determines the purchase decision? And of course, recognize that this will be different in different countries. There will be different customs and different perceptions in different areas. It could be the case that customers in one country have a certain set of requirements, and customers in a different country may emphasize something different. Perhaps price is most important in one country, quality in another country. It depends. But it's important to understand the buyer decision. Customer research is important because an organization can identify customer preferences and attitude towards their product and services. So it's essential that the organization tries to understand the customers. What is it that the customers are looking for? What's important to the customers? Is it the price? Is it delivery? Is it the quality? Is it the design? Is it the durability? What is it exactly that determines the purchase decision? Try to understand that so that products may be produced for markets, and different products, perhaps different designs, different functionality even in different markets, because of climate or because of other factors. Perhaps they don't want the same range of functions from one market to the next. So it's important that the company understands the requirements in each market and tries to produce products to meet those requirements. Research can be carried out on customer preferences towards brands and the level of satisfaction towards certain products. So the market research can be quite detailed. Obviously it's expensive to carry out, but as I said earlier, totally essential. But it can investigate customer preferences related to brands. Why do customers like one brand and not the other brand? What's the satisfaction levels associated with the purchase of a particular brand? Why are the customers happy with that, and why don't they switch to a different brand? It's getting an insight into the customers and into their behavior. And once the company has got that, it can then start to produce products and market the products in a way that meets the requirements of that market. Customer research takes place face to face, where the customer is able to express their views and opinions. Market research techniques could include questionnaires, focus groups, and in-depth interviews. There's a whole range of approaches that can be taken towards market research, but by and large it's conducted face to face. If questionnaires are disseminated, just dished out to customers and asked them to complete at their convenience, the response rate may be very low. And even if there is a response rate, it may be very inaccurate because people rush through it. They haven't got time. They're not that interested. Why should they be? That's the way they see it. In fact, it should be, because it's in their interest to get the better products in the future. But that's not the immediate concern of most people. So if the questionnaires were filled out by themselves, they would probably be rushed, and that's if they return them at all. They may simply just put them in the recycle bin. Customer research involves family consumption habits and life cycle. Organizations must have some research base on their customers, when they purchase the product, why they make the purchase, and the stages of the family cycle. It's important to get a backdrop on the customers. Understand why are they buying the product, and that may be related to family circumstances. It may be related to what's happening in the local area in terms of employment or the economic conditions of the local area. It may relate to wider family influences. It may be influenced by past culture. There are many determining factors which can fit in to explain the purchasing decision. And it's important that the marketing research delves into these and tries to get an understanding of them, so that the management can then make decisions about the product with these factors in mind. Now, pricing research. Well, price is an important factor in market research. Decisions about pricing goods and services have to be carefully considered. Everyone suffers from scarcity. In a sense, none of us have enough money. Well, I suppose there are some very, very rich people who may consider that they've got enough. But the vast majority of the population of the world would like to have more money. So money is scarce. Incomes are scarce. And this means that when people make a purchase decision, they're spending some of their scarce resource to get the product. Now, this means that the purchase decision may be well thought out on the part of the purchaser. They're allocating a scarce resource, their money, to buying the product. This could be used for some other purpose. So they must balance what they're spending on this product against what they could have bought had they bought something else. So purchase decisions, generally speaking, are well thought out. I know we talk about impulse buying and snap decisions, but in terms of the overall purchasing that goes on within an economy, generally speaking, purchases are carefully considered because we are spending our scarce resource, our money. And in so doing, if we buy the product, in so doing, we're giving up the opportunity of buying some other product that perhaps we also wanted. Pricing has to be considered analytically and creatively. Customers need to be tempted to make a purchase, and price should encourage customers to complete their buying decision. So the product must interest the customers. They must look at the product and consider it desirable. It's got a nice design. It's got particular functionality, as I said earlier. It's got it represents good quality, and it enhances the image of the person. People will admire the product. So it's a status thing as well, perhaps. But once the interest is caught in this way, the price will determine whether the product is purchased or not. It may be the case that people will look at a product and think it's highly desirable, it's good quality, it enhances their reputation, it's got good functionality, but then they think it's too expensive and they will walk away. It's when they get to the stage of it looks good and they've ticked all the boxes in terms of its desirability, and they look at the price and they think, yes, well, that's a reasonable price, I will purchase it. So the price is the clinching factor at the end. They're attracted to the product for a start, and then the price determines whether the purchase will go ahead or not. Price should generate profit and success for an organization. Clearly, the price that's charged, it must cover the average variable cost of production. It must more than cover it because it must make a contribution to the overheads as well. In fact, the price should cover all the costs of the organization, the fixed and the variable costs, and also generate a profit. That's why the business existed in the first place. That's why the business came into existence, so that the owners of the business could make a profit. Now the tension is that the customers want to pay as little as possible, and the producers ideally would like to charge as much as possible. And that's where market research can help. It can tell the management what the price should be or what range it should fall into, so that the price is set reasonably according to conditions in the market from the outset. Successful pricing should take into account factors such as demand, level of competition, technology advancement, cost of materials, and the cost of labour. As I said earlier, in a more generic sense, it should cover all of the fixed costs, the premises, the machines, and so on, all of the assets, and the maintenance of the assets, and the procurement of the assets of the business. It should also cover the variable costs, the raw materials, the labour, the energy that's used, and so on. It should cover all of those, and it should also generate a profit. But it must be careful that the profit it makes or attempts to make ensures the viability of the business, that the customers do not turn against the product because they think it's too expensive. Pricing is an effective method for product positioning in relation to competitors and their pricing strategies. It depends, of course, on the nature of the product. Some products may be put into the market as luxury products. And if there are luxury products and they're trying to claim that status, their price must be high, so that when people see the product, they know it's an expensive product. It happens with jewellery and watches and some items of clothing, cars, many areas of purchase. So sometimes the products are aimed at the luxury end of the market, and the prices will reflect this. Sometimes they're aimed at day-to-day purchases, in which case the price must be more competitive. So it depends really where the product is positioned in the market. It also needs to take into account what the competitors are charging for similar products. If the competitors are charging less for good products in the same category, then the pricing strategy may have to be amended. So there's a lot to consider in the context of the pricing research. Now, sales and distribution research. Well, sales research analysis analyzes, I should say, the selling activities of the business. So sales research looks at the selling activities, looks at the channels that are used for selling. It could be through retail outlets, in which case the sales staff have to be trained in the attributes of the product and in the use of the product. But it could be that the sales research is based on perhaps mail order or online selling. It could also be that the product is a single product, it stands on its own, or it could be one of a range of products. There could be different types of the product offered for sale, all with different functionality, with slightly different designs and so on. So the sales effort must be carefully thought out. Sales activity is important to assess a company's current position and profit potential. Clearly, if the company is selling, then that is good. It's good for the balance sheet. But if the company is having problems in the market, it could be that the price is wrong, or that the sales team are not adequately trained, or that the product is not positioned correctly in the market, that it's positioned in the wrong part of the market. It's positioned in the luxury part of the market, when in fact it should be mid-range. So it depends. But these decisions can only be made when the information from market research is fed back to the management, so that they can carefully decide where the product should be positioned, what training the staff need in the sales activity, and what the image of the product is, the image of the business is, the reputation of the business, what sort of promotional activity needs to be put in place with the product. So there are many decisions to be made. These can only be properly made when the feedback, if you like, from market research, the processed feedback, is made available to the management to make those decisions. Sales research, such as published information, internal data records and external data, is important in identifying current sales position for a business. So the onus is on the business to understand what sales have taken place, the prices at which the sales took place, the seasons in which the sales took place. It's necessary to look at the various records of sales activity for the product, unless of course it's a new product, in which case they are working blind, they're working without any guidance. It's important that the organization also, in making decisions about sales and distribution, they have adequate information about costs, the cost of the product, They should look at the capability of the business to produce the product, the volume that they can produce, the size of the market, the attributes of the market, including perhaps a pestle analysis of the market, looking at overall conditions in the market, economic, the social, the political, looking at all of the different aspects of the market to try and decide what sort of sales can be expected. Sales research should be compared to competitors. Any fall in sales can be assessed against competitors. It can also be looked at market trends and customer change in preferences. Clearly, variations in sales could be caused by the activities of competitors who are perhaps cutting prices or engaging in much more aggressive sales tactics in the marketplace, perhaps putting many more people into the marketplace to try and dominate that particular market. So variations in sales may be an indicator of competitor behavior in that market. But it could also be related to other areas, like, for example, market trends. Simply the customers are turning against the product. They think now it's old-fashioned, or it's not kept up to date, or there's something about the product that's not attractive anymore to the customers. There's a change in their customer preferences, which has led to a change in sales. So changes in sales needs to be looked at, and the precise cause for the change in sales should ideally be isolated. A decline in sales requires research in identifying the causes, such as sales team activity. Perhaps the sales team are not putting enough into the effort of selling, or looking at the effectiveness of the sales team. Perhaps they're not adequately trained. But also looking at the distribution channels used. Is the product being sold in the right outlets? Are the outlets located in the right areas? What's the prominence of the product within the outlet? Is it kept away in some obscure part of the outlet? If it's a shop or a store, is the product displayed in some obscure spot? Or is it at the front where people can see it immediately? Look at the distribution channels as well. Should it be sold online as well as sold in local shops? Should it be sold in just one particular type of shop, or should it be sold in different types of outlets? What sort of customer services are required in terms of sales? Perhaps they need detailed explanation of the product. For example, if we're buying a modern television, many of us would require the salesperson to give us a demonstration and talk us through the various functions of the television. Television technology has improved immensely over the years, and we might need some instructions as how to use the television appropriately. But to do this, of course, the sales team must be appropriately trained. So it's important that the market research delves into all of those areas and picks up data on those and reports it back to the organization, so that remedial action can be taken if things are going wrong. If they're going right, then it's still important to understand why they're doing well, what are the emerging trends in the market, what's happening to customer preferences, how do the customers see the product, see the price. It's important that this information is constantly coming back to the organization so that they can keep their decisions contemporary. Distribution research is carried out in search for more efficient means of product and service delivery. So distribution research is constantly conducted so as to try and improve whatever situation is in place at the moment. If the company has a particular way of distributing the product. It has a particular channel. It has set up particular routines involved in training the sales staff and in monitoring the product in the outlets and so on. It still needs to look for alternatives. It still needs to look for new opportunities. It can't simply rest on what is happening currently. It must look to new ways, better ways of doing essentially the same task. So it must look for cost savings, and it must look for more efficiencies, but also it must look for more security within the market. The internet has offered many opportunities for online shopping. Retailers opt for online shopping as a cost-effective approach. It could be that the organisation decides to sell its product online because it cuts out the cost of selling it through retailers or wholesalers or going through the more traditional channels. It cuts it out. They don't have their commission. They don't have their percentages added on. So it's much more cost effective. However, it's assuming that the customers have access to the internet. It's assuming that the customers want to shop this way. It's assuming that the customers know about the particular site. And then it's assuming that the customers have confidence in the technology and in using the site, that the site hasn't been hacked or there's a virus, or people, their fears need to be dealt with. So there are downsides in using the internet as well as advantages. And for that reason, it's reasonable to assume that organizations will have a more, if you like, hybrid approach. They will use online and offline. They will use the more traditional methods, but they will also use online. But then, of course, there are conflicts about pricing, and if the online is much cheaper than the traditional distribution channels, then there are issues. The traditional distributors will be upset by the fact that the customers who buy it online much cheaper, and so there are issues to be dealt with. And again, this has to be fed back to the management and solutions found. So market research can also look into promotion research. Promotion research looks into the most efficient methods of promoting products and services. What's the best way of promoting a particular product? It could be simply by advertising in local press, or advertising on the national press, or advertising on the media, making people aware of the product. Or it could be promoted by door-to-door activities. Very expensive, but it could be. There are a whole variety of promotional methods, and market research should look into what is the most appropriate way of dealing with this product. What's the most appropriate way of promoting the product? It's important that this is found, because the most efficient way of promoting it is the one that the organization needs, the one which is, if you like, most profitable. So the research must provide guidance on the best promotion techniques for a business. And the best promotion techniques could be traditional channels, going through warehouses and wholesalers and retailers and so on and so on. And simply getting the best position in the shop and having well-trained staff who will promote the product. That could be the best way. Or it could be the best way to advertise it, taking advertisements on the internet with major providers on the internet. That could be the best way. It's important that the research examines this, finds out how many people saw the promotion that was run by the business online. How many people saw the advertisement that was on television? How many people saw the advertisement in the local newspaper? Try to find where did people see the product? before they made the purchase. Organizations need to research effective promotion techniques for different audiences. People are different as well, and different socioeconomic groups will have different requirements. It might be that a product range is required, because some people don't want all the functionality of the product. If it's a very sophisticated household piece of equipment, they may not need everything. They just need some basic functionality. Some people need everything. They need to have all the functions that the product can provide. It's a question of looking at who needs the product, who are the likely customers. And they may range from middle income to lower income, or they may range from middle income to upper income. They may range from people living in particular areas to, and so on. It's all sorts of issues associated with the different types of customers and the attributes of the different customers. So it's a question of linkage of possible sales against different types of customers, and also linking it to perhaps location, where do people live, and then linking it to perhaps some sort of pestle of that area. What's the political, socio-economic foundation or basis of that area? What's happening in the area, and what's likely to happen in the near future? All of this just leads us to think that market research is an extremely important activity. It refines data. It collects data first, and then it refines it into information using perhaps statistical techniques or through some sort of interpretation of the data, so that it becomes information which can be used by the organization to more effectively promote its product, thereby giving the organization a better chance of survival in the face of competition. It recognizes the global dimension, but it also recognizes local requirements. It looks into distribution channels and promotion techniques and pricing. It looks at all the aspects that are important, mostly from the buyer's point of view. But it feeds this back to the organization, so the organization is able to tweak what it's doing in line with customer requirements. If the customers are happy with the product, they like the product, and it's at the right price, the chances are the customers will buy the product. And the purchase decision, and what determines the purchase decision, is really extremely important for the management of the organization to understand. But it can only understand that if it conducts market research, and the market research is effective, producing reliable information and feeding that back so that decisions can be made. But that's all we're going to do in this session. There's the source I gave for the definition of market research earlier on. And now we're going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.